Agriculture Minister John Steenhuisen has just begun his address at Agri Eastern Cape's annual general meeting. It's essentially a gathering to try and find ways through a number of issues in the agricultural industry. Of course, in the Eastern Cape, a number of farms have been saddled with bird flu and the foot and mouth disease outbreak. Let's listen in.
Both skilled and unskilled job absorption in the agricultural sector cannot be understated. It is also the sector where, as you've seen, can be a driver of massive economic growth. And Christelle's presentation showed very clearly just how important agriculture has been to the overall health of our GDP in South Africa and how it has essentially been propping up the rest of the economy in terms of economic growth for South Africa. And that is in a very, very tough environment. It is in an environment that the odds have been stacked against the agricultural sector and things have been made incredibly difficult. We've had almost a decade of policy uncertainty around expropriation without compensation. We've had massive growth in violent crime in rural areas and in farm communities. We've had huge problems with biosecurity issues, avian flu, African swine flu, African horse sickness, and now recently the outbreaks of foot and mouth disease. And despite all of that, despite all of those obstacles, you've been able to see the agricultural sector propping up the rest of the economy. And imagine what we could do and what that graph would look like if we were able to remove these obstacles that have been in the way and preventing it from really taking off to where the sector should be. And imagine what we can do for economic growth in South Africa if we can get that right. So I chose the agriculture portfolio because I fundamentally believe that there are big changes that we can make. I think there are huge opportunities for growth, for economic development, but also for job creation, but also ways in which we can ensure South Africa's economic health improves dramatically. Now, as you know, the department is being separated currently. It used to be the Department of Agriculture, Land Reform and Rural Development. The department will be splitting in the next couple of months, and Land Reform and Rural Development will be going off under another ministry. This is not the first time that agriculture has been split. It used to, you remember, be a portfolio on its own. It was then put with forestry and fisheries. That was then changed to Land Reform and Rural Development. Now, obviously, there's some implications then, as I said in my speech in Parliament to the Portfolio Committee, that whilst we may be getting a divorce as the two departments, we're going to have to retain some sort of relationship because we have children together. And the two portfolios are going to have some common working relationship in order to deal with things like land settlements, the allocation of land, and some of the outstanding issues. But I do believe there is an upside to the splitting of the departments. And that is borne out by the fact that we will now have a department that focuses on agriculture, agro-processing, and the advancement of that industry and sector with a clear focus on that. If one looks at the department, and certainly I look at the budget speeches from last year, I look at a lot of the documentation that's come there, Land Reform and Rural Development has sucked up a lot of the oxygen and attention of the Minister and of the Portfolio Committee and of the various mechanisms. I think it's going to be healthy to again have agriculture on its own with a strong focus on what needs to be done in the agriculture and agro-processing sector, and to make sure that it's getting the full-time attention of the ministry to make sure that those aspects of the agriculture and agro-processing master plan, where government has made commitments, need to be applied and strengthened and quickened, can be done. And I think that that's going to be very, very important going forward. I wanted to share a few of the priorities that I've outlined in the budget speech this year. And again, the budget that was tabled this year in Parliament was the legacy budget of the 6th administration. Unfortunately or fortunately, Treasury has rules and certain timeframes for budgets to be passed. By the 29th of July, we had to have had the budget passed. We had to have gone through the line items by department, and those have had to go through Parliament. So I want to be very clear that those budgets that were passed were legacy budgets of the 6th administration. There's been a commitment by the Finance Minister and with the various departmental heads and at a cabinet level that we will now embark upon a process of prioritising, reprioritising, so when the medium-term budget policy statement comes out, and certainly the February budget next year comes out, it will be the first budget that is truly owned by the Government of National Unity. And I think will better reflect some of the new priorities and some of the new thinking that is coming out of Treasury and out of the various departments, and will be I believe, a far more focused budget on what really needs to be done over the next 5 years to get the economy growing, to get us off this high debt, low growth, high unemployment trajectory and onto a new trajectory of hope, opportunity and prosperity for more South Africans. So some of the key priorities that are outlined in the budget this year, and Peter has kindly done a good introduction of them. And the first thing is biosecurity. And nowhere, I suppose, is this more relevant than right where we sit here today in the Eastern Cape, which has now had a devastating outbreak of foot and mouth disease with quite serious consequences for both farmers, but also for the agricultural economy here in the Eastern Cape and also nationally. Obviously, we need to focus on massively improving biosecurity. And I want to thank the mayor of the local municipality, Hateng Borman, for yesterday having got his council to declare this a natural disaster and a state of disaster, which I think will allow some mechanisms, particularly with the banks, to be able to be expedited and kicked in. As you know, I gazetted a couple of days ago a disaster management area for the Eastern Cape. But we obviously need to be a lot more proactive about how we deal with biosecurity issues in South Africa. I'm incredibly concerned about the state of the OBP, the Onaspuit biological products, because there's clearly been a shortage of foot and mouth vaccines. We're currently importing a large number of them from Botswana. And it shouldn't be that a country which should be the leading country on the continent should have to now go to other countries to source vaccines. And I've certainly made OBP and the problems associated with it a priority area. If OBP is not able to produce the number, quantity and types of vaccines that we need in South Africa, then we need to open up to allow other players into the market to be able to meet the demands. It cannot be right that we have insufficient stocks of African horse sickness vaccines, of foot and mouth vaccines, and other products that are required where you have a monopoly existing, but that monopoly is not able to then supply the market. We need to do something about massively improving access, quality and quantity of vaccines in South Africa. I think that there was a very, very good report.
All right, live visuals there coming out of the Eastern Cape. John Steenhuisen speaking in his capacity as the Agricultural Minister, outlining some of his priorities at a gathering called the Agri Eastern Cape Annual General Meeting. It's essentially meant to discuss a whole host of issues, including ways in which issues can be sorted out in that particular sector.